So my name is Peter. Originally, I grew up in Canada on the West Coast in Vancouver. And after about high school, I moved kind of further out east, just outside of Toronto for university. I went to Western, and um, I guess maybe something worth touching on, like I never really found, I wasn't sure what career I wanted to end up in. And in university, I actually switched programs every single year I was in school. So I started in biomed because I was a good science student, and that just seemed like, oh, that's the smart thing to do. And then I switched into psychology, and then I was pre-accepted into the business program, Ivy, and decided not to go, and then ended up in music, and then graduated with a business degree. So somehow my first year uh, chemistry classes converted into calculus classes, and my I just went to my dean and I'm like, I'm not meant to be in school, and help me kind of get out of here. And somehow I was able to kind of get out in about 4.5 years, which was great. Luckily enough, when I was in school, I found startups, and so out of my university, and just somehow kind of ended up in entrepreneurial circle where a lot of friends were actually leaving school to start their own businesses. I was part of this kind of student entrepreneurial organization called Impact. And a lot of people who were part of this volunteer organization were starting their own companies. And I found that really exciting. And it kind of moved me away from like doing things that were super theoretical into like really just going out and going into the world. And so I fell into startups kind of fortuitously. And then because I was in that community, that kind of landed me my first few jobs in out of school. And then I spent about 15 years in startups leading marketing and growth. So oftentimes joining companies super early stage, like marketing hire number one, and helping to build companies from there. So saw a lot of kind of pre-seed, seed stage companies, and helped to kind of grow them to Series A, Series B type companies, and had like wild rides at a bunch of different companies, and saw everything. Um, Companies that were built really thoughtfully, companies that built really, really fast, and had a really good career there. But then about a year ago, I kind of came to the realization that it was time for a shift, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, now I'm in food, and kind of following.
When we talked last, you mentioned that it was your 34th birthday is kind of when you had this moment, and you kind of realized, that what you were doing, you didn't necessarily feel aligned to continue doing,
Hmm.
and you made this pretty big leap into pursuing a dream and career in food. And yeah, I would just love for you to share a little bit about like what was that moment? You might even know the specific details of like what you were doing when you
Hmm.
suddenly had that thought. And yeah, what was that like considering such a big move, especially going from, probably a pretty lucrative career.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, what went through your head? What was it like making that decision? Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe to start, um, food has been something that has been a love for a long time. And I'd always kind of had these pipe dreams about, oh, like, why don't I go into food? Food's been in my family for a while. Actually, my sister had thought about leaving her career to go into food, and that was very quickly turned down by my dad at the time. He was like, no, that's not a good idea. And I think she was a little bit younger than when I made the transition, and I think maybe perhaps she felt more like she was running away from something versus running toward something. But just to say that, like, I had thought about food for a while, but I never thought that that was actually going to happen. It felt like, this was just a dream, and that it was irresponsible somehow because, you know, it's a hard life. Everyone says like, you lose. It's just like really stressful. It's toxic. You hear all these things about food, and it's not good pay. All these reasons why you shouldn't do it. So I thought about it, but it was never a real thing until I think I moved to Berlin, and that shift helped open my eyes to how people in Berlin specifically were really making choices around their lives to do the thing that they felt like they were supposed to do in life, that they were called to do in life versus what they were expected to do. And back home in Canada, I feel like there's a lot of pressure, even though it's unspoken sometimes, to do the thing that you're expected to do. You know, go get the job, go get the better title, the better salary, then afford the house, then have the family. Like there's just this pressure in Toronto, I think, to kind of follow that path. And I think in Berlin, it was the first time that I was exposed to a lot of people who were just living very alternative lifestyles. And so that kind of planted all the seeds. And then it was actually a very quick decision. Like I turned 34, it was around my birthday, and I was like, I did a little, I had some kind of, thought process or I just imagined myself. I was like, I just turned 34. Where am I kind of headed in life? I've spent 15 years kind of doing startups and it's been really good to me, but what do the next 15 years look like? And it's kind of continuing down that path of getting the bigger title, maybe I become a VP or CMO of a company or whatnot. And I could just, because I'd been in the industry for so long, I could imagine what that would be like. And it just wasn't something that really I was that curious about and that excited to do. And so I was like, man, it's time for me to kind of make a change. And from the moment I had that doubt and that shift in thinking to, hey, I'm just going to take a year off to explore what I actually really deeply love. I think I had come across people in life who had found something that they really loved, and every day didn't feel like work. They could do 15 to 20 hours or 15 to 18 hours or whatever, just like nonstop. And it still feels, that they can do it and that they're excited to do it. And I definitely didn't feel that way about startups. And food was the best guess I had at living a life like that. And so I kind of started taking some steps in that direction.